Okay, winter is on the way, and if you listen to this show, you know there's only one product that I absolutely rely on when I get a sore throat or a scratchy throat, and that's the delicious Pine Brothers Softish Throat Drops. Now, it's the only throat drop that is ranked #1 in throat coating action, #1. And I mean, you can literally feel it, that coating of your throat, with their gum acacia, their plant glycerin, and, of course, their delicious natural flavors. Now, they're amazing. My favorite is wild cherry and licorice. I also love the honey and licorice. Now, I've turned a lot of people onto Pine Brothers. You want to know the first three things that come out of their mouth? One, they're delicious. I can feel them coat my throat, and wow, they're soft, almost like a gummy bear. Yeah, I know they're soft. That's why they're called Pine Brothers Softish Throat Drops. Now, work with me, people. So this season, look, you're going to have some throat issues, and do what I do to soothe my golden throat. I use Pine Brothers Throat Drops. You will love this product. It's worth every penny. You can find Pine Brothers at CVS, Select, Walmart, Target, ShopRite. Why? Because they are the best. Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. All right, glad you're with us. Write down our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of this extravaganza. 800-941-SEAN if you want to join us. A lot coming up today. A lot of reports that on election night and then thereafter, Hillary has been in a complete meltdown mode. I mean, totally melting down. We'll get to that. Newt Gingrich also here to counter false narratives. The media is not stopping their misinformation, their propaganda, their attacks on Trump. And they're trying to create impressions that I know for a fact personally are just not true. And I'll explain how I know it's not true. You've got pastors like Robert Jeffers and Pastor Darrell Scott who supported Donald Trump now under heavy, heavy fire and much, much more. You know, one of the big stories, the media is out there. They're on remember they were on a quail hunt when Dan Quayle was picked. And they were just vicious to Dan Quayle, vicious to Governor Palin. You know, well, now they're going to do it with every Trump appointment. Now, they didn't do it to Reince Priebus, but the media is out there, for example, trashing or trying to trash, in spite of all of these prominent Jewish Americans saying, knock it off. Even Alan Dershowitz saying there's no evidence at all that Steve Bannon is anti-Semitic. I know him. Have known him forever, and it's not true. Pam Geller, another prominent writer, author, outspoken critic of radical Islam, she has said it. She's Jewish. Joel Pollack, who I've known for many years and is absolutely a brilliant guy over at Breitbart, he too has said it. But it doesn't matter. The media, they pick a narrative. They want to run with it. The latest one is about Bannon. Without a shred of evidence, by the way, the same media, you know, think of the very curious blind spot they have when it comes to a guy who's now the front runner to head up the DNC. And that's Congressman Keith Ellison running for DNC chair. Now, we see that he's got links to very extreme groups. Now, he once spoke at the convention of the Islamic Society in North America. Yet the Islamic Society in North America has actually admitted its ties to Hamas, according to a piece that I saw in Front Page Magazine today. And then, of course, Hamas in their charter vows to destroy Israel. Well, I don't see any criticism against the DNC picking Keith Ellison. The Justice Department actually classified the Islamic Society of North America among entities, quote, who are and who were members of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood. Why did Congressman Keith Ellison speak to this radical Islamic group? I don't care that he's a Muslim, but supporting radical Islamic groups is a problem. In 2008, Ellison accepted $13,350 from the Muslim American Society to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. The Muslim American Society, reports in the front page magazine say, is a Muslim Brotherhood organization. Quote, in recent years, the U.S. Brotherhood operated under the name Muslim American Society, according to documents and interviews. The Hamas-linked council, well, of course, we know the unindicted co-conspirators over CARE, raised large amounts of money for Ellison's first campaign. He has spoken at numerous CARE events. Yet CARE is an unindicted co-conspirator in the Homeland case, the Hamas terror funding case. so named by the Justice Department. And CAIR officials have repeatedly refused to denounce Hamas and Hezbollah as terrorist groups. But yet Hamas declared killing Jews is worship that draws us close to God. To Allah. Well, all right, now that he's aligned himself with radical groups, in the case of CAIR, unindicted co-conspirators in the Holy Land Foundation case, and why are they hanging out with radicals? Well, if it's good for Donald Trump and Steve Bannon, you'd think it would be good for Keith Ellison, who wants to be the head of the DNC. But, of course, the New York Times, in spite of them saying that they promised to rededicate themselves to honest reporting. No, they haven't. And no, they won't. And nor will CNN, and nor will NBC, nor will MSNBC, nor will CBS or ABC. They're not going to change their stripes. They're going to double down on radicalism. They're going to double down on Trump hatred. And this is where, some of the reporting that is even out there today is just inaccurate. Like, one of the big reports I'm reading today. Oh, the Donald Trump campaign is in deep trouble. It's in deep trouble because the transition is not going well. The transition is in disarray. No, it's not in disarray. And I know because I actually was at Trump Tower on Saturday night. I actually talked to Donald Trump today. And the funny thing is, if they're in disarray, I didn't see it when I was there, and I don't hear it in his voice when I'm talking to him. And what I hear is a hands-on guy that is going through a lot of names for a lot of top positions and going through the difficult I was there till like 12 o'clock at night, for crying out loud. And all they were doing is working. And for the part that I was there. Anyway, so it's not in disarray as they are proclaiming in the media. Everybody said, well, France and the UN are telling Trump action on climate change is unstoppable. Maybe for them it's unstoppable, but not for Donald Trump. He's not going to take a dictate from the UN or the French. These are absurd columns you're reading. By the way, it was interesting, and Yahoo Online had the Chinese media is actually praising Trump's experience and ideology. Well, maybe they like the fact that somebody's going to be hands-on and fully on board to do business deals. One disappointment is Ben Carson has ruled out serving in the Trump administration. He told me a while ago he really wasn't that interested in it. He did tell me that, so that didn't come as a surprise to me. There's so much that Donald Trump is going to do in the first 2 hours, the media has no idea. There's going to be so much because the president is not respected, co-equal branches of government, separation of powers, enumerated powers. There's so much Trump can do so quickly with the stroke of a pen to reverse the entire Obama failed agenda. Keystone Pipeline, for example, is one of them. He could fast track that. He can get rid of illegal, unconstitutional executive orders. There's so much he can move very quickly on. They can move quickly on an immigration bill. The key is what I'm more worried about is Republicans that are pathetically weak in Congress that have shown no inclination to fight or take a stand and no backbone. I'm more worried about them. I'm not worried about Trump. I'm not going to go with any of the rumors or people that I'm hearing for top positions because what's the point? Whoever gets named is going to be smeared, slandered, and besmirched. They're trying to do that to Rudy Giuliani now, and I'm not even sure that Rudy wants a top spot. Slate is out there, and who else? Slate is actually reporting there's no such thing as a good Trump supporter. CBS analysts, there's no such thing as a good Trump voter. Slate, no such thing as a good Trump voter. We're all evil, unredeemable, deplorables. Here we are. Once again, at least 3 NBA teams are going to boycott Trump hotels. Big deal. I don't want Trump to succeed. I want him to fail spectacularly. Between now and January 20th, when Trump takes the oath of office as America's 45th president, many Americans will wish for him to be a successful president. Not me. I don't want him to succeed. I want him to fail spectacularly. I say this not because I don't accept the outcome of the election or because I don't recognize him as my president. Trump won fair and square, will be the president in the next 4 years, but make no mistake. Success for Trump would be a disaster for America. Oh, you mean getting people back to work, getting people, getting trillions of dollars repatriated, getting Americans back to work. That's a bad thing? I don't think so. I think that's a good thing. America wins if we can build factories and manufacturing centers and get better trade deals and lower taxes and incentivize corporations to build their businesses here instead of abroad and parking all their money in Belize or the Caymans or St. Kitts or wherever else they're parking their money. It's ridiculous. Now the media narrative is to prevent Rudy Giuliani from ever becoming Secretary of State because, after 9/11, because of his strength and his knowledge of security and reducing crime in New York City, he has a consulting partnership and he would consult with foreign countries. So what? But I guess that'll be the big media obstacle. And this is how superfluous the news media is. You know what their big anger about Trump is today? Is that Trump dumped the press pool. And he did something horrible. He took his family out to dinner. Oh, my gosh. I can't believe that. Anyway, but it's not that he went to dinner. He took his family to dinner, and you've got what they call the press pool, a group of journalists. They would have been ready to travel with him, but the pool was not notified. Sorry. If he goes to the bathroom, does he need to get permission first? Does he need to tell you if it's number 1 or number 2 so you can figure out how long he's going to be in there? This is so stupid. Then the other narrative that's false is that Donald Trump has changed his views, that he's not going to repeal and replace Obamacare. He told me just the opposite today on the telephone. Nothing's changed. And that he always felt that there needed to be. And by the way, every Republican plan that was proposed as an alternative included pre-existing conditions and kids being allowed to get started in their life and stay on their parents' plan. He always said that should be an option. Every Republican said it. Now you got the president going out after meeting with him, and the president saying that Donald Trump expressed great interest in maintaining our core strategic relationship with NATO. Well, Donald Trump, he did call NATO obsolete, and he said he's sick and tired of America footing the bill for everything. I asked him about it today. No, I haven't changed my position at all. Or on immigration, that part of the wall might be a fence in areas that, he's always said that. The wall's not going to be along the entire border, but it's going to be secure. That's what he said. And as it relates to locking up Hillary, that's not going to be his call. Congress will decide if they're going to continue investigating Hillary Clinton. They have a responsibility not to have a two-tier justice system. But the other big blockbuster story is poor Ivanka. It was on 60 Minutes, and she had one of her own bracelets from her own line on her own wrist. And then somebody that works for her tweeted out the picture. See, this is the one she's wearing. You might want to buy this one. Oh, my gosh, she's misusing her position as a first daughter. And that's how ridiculous it is. Now, they did say, somebody at the company, notification was sent out by a well-intentioned marketing employee at one of our companies who was following customary protocol. In other words, if she was in the media wearing one of her things that she sells, they send it out. So they did it as usual. And who, like many of us, are still making adjustments. This is a full page in one of the New York tabloids today. Ivanka and her bracelet. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. Then we've got the total freak-out mode continuing. I mean, I thought it was bad. Now, apparently, aroma rooms are being set up. What do you call aromatherapy? Then you've got pet therapy. And then you've got anger rooms and cry rooms being set up at universities around the country because our little spoiled brat children can't handle the fact that the person that they wanted or probably didn't vote for and didn't take the time to vote for didn't get elected. Oh, I'm sorry your widow feelings have been hurt. I'm so sorry. Life is very difficult. I'm so sorry. Nobody should have to suffer such pain and such trauma as you to go through the pain of an election and an election loss. Well, meanwhile, the dollar has hit a 14-year high. And by the way, Trump-fueled bond sell-off resumes and continues. The world's biggest real estate frenzy is coming to New York City, we're told, because people are so optimistic about a Trump economy. how Trump could spell trouble for the Fed, which has been artificially keeping down interest rates, which, by the way, means it's an artificial economy. You got a Trump economic advisor predicting GDP growth rate could actually double. And then, oh, by the way, there's an interesting article on CNN, Trump considering Ted Cruz for Attorney General. That's interesting if he's up there. But we'll have to see. You know when you're going to know? When you know. You know when you're going to know? When he decides. You know when you're going to know? When he decides to tell you. And you know what? You know how many positions we're talking about filling here? Like thousands. It's not going to happen overnight. And yet the way the media is acting, it's just beyond the pale. Beyond the pale. But it's very predictable. All right, we got all the other news of the day. Newt Gingrich checks in today. Pastors under fire. Robert Jeffers and Darrell Scott. And did Hillary really have that bad a meltdown because she lost? We'll get into all of that and much more in the course of the program today. This is pretty sad. This is in the Daily Caller. A Trump supporter shot to death after joking about deportation. Mitchell Mormon Jr. gunned down outside a popular Atlanta, Georgia bar on early Sunday morning after entering into an argument over Donald Trump's immigration plan. Shawnita Walker, who had accompanied Mormon on a date Saturday night, was also injured in the shooting, according to WSB-TV. How the murder happened. According to Walker, Mormon and the shooter began arguing outside the bar after the shooter made an inappropriate comment about Walker. Mormon joked to the man, whom Walker identified as Hispanic, and he had voted for Trump and that he'd be deported within the week. Boom, out comes the gun. You know what's amazing? So they keep doing road work, Linda, by my house. It drives me nuts. So I'm trying to get out and get to work today. And so the guy, you got this, like, construction guy. And you know how much respect I have for construction. I'm all for him. So the guy lets 3 cars go. And then he says, no, you can't go. And I said, well, you just let 3 cars go. He said, yeah, but now we're not letting anybody else through. I'm like, I got to get to work. And so I said, what's your name? And I said, this gives me his name. I said, so you're saying to me that there's no way I can go? And I said, you're just full of crap because I just saw the 3 other guys go. You know what he says to me? Yeah, Donald Trump won. Make America great. So I didn't get to go through. Pretty amazing, right? Yeah, and it's a construction guy. I'm figuring you're going to be working now thanks to Trump. I don't know. It was a little here. So I go, okay, you win. You win. I'll go take the extra 15-minute detour to try and get to work. And I had a speech today, as you know, over at Radio Inc. They have their annual event, which was very fun, by the way. Did I get good reviews? Did anyone say anything? So I talked about the election being about the forgotten man. And I said, in radio, we can't forget about who keeps us in business, the forgotten listener. And that's what I talked about. The number one issue for Americans has to be getting back to work, out of poverty, off of food stamps, back in the business of buying homes and cars and living better lives. That, to me, is the number one thing we ought to be doing. Stephen Moore, an economist, writes in the Washington Times today, when Donald Trump said last week he will double the American growth rate, his skeptics were scoffing at the idea. The left doesn't think 4% growth is possible because they never came close to that target under Obama. You know, Obama's the first president in history never to have a single year at 3% growth. In the 1980s, the Reagan agenda had quarterly growth rates of 6, 7, and even 8%. 1 month recorded 1 million new jobs. Now, that's what's called a recovery. And Trump is right that if India and China can grow at 8 to 10%, okay, surely we can grow at 4%. So anyway, he talks, I think what he's doing is going to be smart. 7 brackets to 3, corporate tax rate 15%, 3 brackets instead of 7. Then you're going to repatriate trillions at a low rate, 10%. You're still getting tax revenues, but we now need to become the safe haven for every multinational corporation. Hannity, you're helping out the rich people, the rich corporations. They won't pay their fair share. Okay, this is what you need to understand. Corporations do not pay taxes. Do you get that? The reason they're not building factories and manufacturing centers here is because corporations aren't stupid. And corporations, if they're going to be taxed to death in the U.S., they're going to take their money to another country. So if we give them incentives to bring the trillions that they parked off in the Caymans and St. Kitts and Nevis and Belize and all these tax haven countries and even Ireland, then if we incentivize and bring it back, then they can build their factories in Detroit and in Wisconsin and in Ohio and in Pennsylvania and in those areas that have been suffering the most. It's not that hard to figure out. You have a pro-energy policy? Okay, we have abundant resources, oil, natural gas, coal. All right, well, let's make America the number one energy producer in 4 years. Let's be energy independent in 4 years. Let's sell our natural resources. You know, we have so much natural gas. Let's sell it to Western Europe so they're not dependent on Vladimir Putin turning off the spigot. We'll bankrupt Russia at the same time. Chucky Schumer is under fire from Jewish leaders, according to the Washington Free Beacon, for endorsing Keith Ellison. Anyway, members of the Jewish community are questioning why Chucky would push for Keith Ellison, who's voiced the belief that Israel is an apartheid state, defended Louis Farrakhan, and we know he's a radical racist anti-Semite. Judaism is a gutter religion. Ellison, the first Muslim in Congress, worked to insert the pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli planks into the Democratic Party platform. He also proudly defended Louis Farrakhan, Screwy Louis. He's against being anti-Semitic. His vile beliefs ought to disqualify him outright, said Joel Mowbray, consultant to Jewish groups. If Chuck Schumer actually did his due diligence and is supporting Ellison anyway, that's shameful. By the way, Trump haters strangled a subway rider for wearing a pro-Trump hat. Isn't this nice? We got some reports from Jamie Dupree today. Schumer and McConnell were elected as Senate leaders for the 115th Congress that starts in January. Schumer admitted to reporters that Democrats flubbed the recent elections, and he said they'll work with Trump, but they're going to do battle, especially over Supreme Court nominations. You know what McConnell needs to do? He needs to get rid of the filibuster, just like the way Harry Reid did. That's it. Done. Put the people on the court. House Republicans meeting today on possible rules changes. One move may be an effort to revive budget earmarks. Great. Let's bring back earmarking now that we're in power, shall we? Speaker Boehner did away with that. They still added $5 trillion to the debt. If they do that, then you know what? They don't deserve to be in power. We may have to go line by line, congressman by congressman, senator by senator, and see who we can replace them with. It's certainly not going to be a Democrat, but let's get people committed at least to Trump's agenda. And if they're not going to be committed to it, then they need to get out of the way. Seriously. I wonder if Trump is really considering Cruz for Attorney General. CNN's reporting that. Catherine Frazier said in a statement Trump looks forward to assisting the Trump administration. By the way, I give a lot of props to Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz had the most contentious relationship with Trump, and unlike Lindsey Graham, Jeb Bush, and John Kasich, Ted Cruz still supported Donald Trump and kept his word. Deserves credit for it, and he's been the one guy that's been standing out there alone, too. I still think that there's a lot that we can do as a country to get this country rolling instead of paying attention to Ivanka's jewelry the way they're doing. What else is happening? This is good news. 419-1. Congress voted yesterday to extend Iran sanctions. I like that idea. One thing we're going to keep an eye on is George Soros and his meeting with his band of big donors. And they are trying to resist everything Trump promised and take back power. And apparently he's huddling behind closed doors with Nancy Pelosi. He may now be out as speaker, as a minority leader. Elizabeth Warren, Keith Ellison, union bosses, and, of course, Soros. Why does Soros get to influence so much of our political? I guess because he has money. Yep. They need money. Give me the money. Show me the money. Now, let's get to our phones here. Oh, is that my colleague Ainsley Earhart? She called in? By the way, Ainsley's book, she wrote me just before. She's wanted me to thank you, this audience. Her book, Take Heart, My Child, A Mother's Dream, is now #1 in the country on Amazon.com. And congratulations.
Sean?
Yeah, hi, how are you? You're on the air.
Hey, everyone. Y'all, I am so grateful. Sean, you helped spread the word. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is an answer to prayer, and this is not me. This is your amazing audience, the people who watch Fox and Friends and watch your show. Last night you helped me promote it on your show. You've been promoting it on radio. We have the best listeners and the best viewers. America is amazing, and our supporters are, I just love you all, and I can't thank you enough for helping this book be #1. I mean, really,
I know.
Sean? I didn't know.
No, by the way, that's all book categories, #1 on Amazon.com. We've got a link. We got a link for signed copies. You know, it was really cool. I did get to meet your dad last night.
I know, yeah.
And I got to tell you, what a nice man. And now I understand when you were on the cheerleading team in 7th grade, and then you got totally cut in 8th grade. What a horrible story. And you're upset. And your father, I mean, he's a pretty strong guy. And he told you, he said, well, I know you can handle it, and God will, maybe somebody else that got the position couldn't have handled it like you. That was a great line.
Right. Yeah, right. I mean, he was military. Dad was 22 years in Army Reserve, and he's tough. And he was always teaching us a lesson. And so this book, all the lessons that he taught us over the years, he left little notes next to our cereal bowl. And I wrote this book based on all the lessons that he taught me. And it's just a lyrical book I was pregnant with my daughter at the time when I wrote this. And it's so cool to hold this book and know these are all the lessons that my dad worked so hard, Sean. He reminds me of you because the two of y'all have similar stories. He worked so hard. He put himself through college. His goal was to put us through college. He gave up on his dream of becoming a really amazing basketball coach. He was at the college level, but his goal was to become the basketball coach at the University of South Carolina. He gave up that to go and make more money so that he could send the three of us to college. And he sacrificed all of that for us and then left us those little notes next to our cereal bowl every day. And now there's a book based on those lessons that he taught us that hopefully will change the lives of other people that read this book. And
well, I love the story. He told me a story about having I won't tell the story because I don't have time, but he told me a great story about your brother and how a group of kids wanted to fight your brother, and he made your brother go out and fight him. I thought that was great. That's exactly. And by the way, he reminds me of my parents because my parents didn't have much either. And they never went on vacation or bought new cars. But listen, you're very nice to say thank you. I do have the best audience in the world. This is a great book, the best illustrated book you're ever going to have with a great message. And taken from your favorite biblical quote. And it's "Take heart, my child, a mother's dream." And it's everything that any parent would want to read to their kids. And congratulations. And if people want it, it's on Amazon.com, autographed copies on Hannity.com, okay?
Well, thank you. I hope that
#1 in the country
are like you and like my dad, and both of y'all have influenced my life and been mentors in my life, and I can't thank you enough, Sean, for all your support and your love over the years.
We sent you down to spring break for 10 years. So you worked with us for 10 years. We sent you down to spring break for a week. We really do owe you for that coverage. That was great. All right, thanks.
Oh, my God.
Thanks, Ainsley.
Sean, thank you to everyone. I love you all. You're amazing. I can't thank you enough.
All right, appreciate it. Congratulations. That's awesome. Velma in Vegas. Velma, are you okay, Velma?
I'm good. How you doing?
Hey, Velma, are you okay? Velma, my guy, I finally won. I won one, Velma.
You did. Don't brag. I didn't brag when my man won twice.
Oh, you did so brag. By the way, Velma, I got a present.
I never did brag. I didn't say anything to you bragging.
I got something for you and the kids. I got a special present. You ready?
What?
You like that I give you presents, right?
Sean, I like when I hear from you and you talk to me. That's more important. And to my children.
I love your children. I've adopted them. They're my nephews.
I know that. But you don't be telling people what I say to you.
Okay, listen to me. Listen to this. This is your present.
What?
Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm really rich.
All right, hang on. Hang on.
I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. I don't wear a toupee.
Hang on.
I love China. I just sold an
I
apartment
don't
for
believe he
$15
got me
million
listening to Donald
to
Trump.
somebody from China. Our leaders are stupid. Our politicians are stupid. We will have so much winning if I get elected that you may get bored with winning.
Right.
I think I...
All right, so I'm giving you and the boys Trump pens. You want me to send one for your husband who doesn't like me too?
You giving me Trump pen?
I'm going to give you it's a memento. I'm going to give you and the boys and your husband who hates me a Trump pen.
My husband does not hate you.
Oh, you told me all the time. He's never met me. I brought you to New York. How many times? How many times have I brought?
You shaming yourself saying that about a nice Christian man.
Okay, how many times did I invite you and him to New York? And you and the boys and your sister come. He won't ever come meet me. Why?
It's not because he hates you, that's for sure.
Okay, when I was in Vegas all those times and I got to see you and the boys, how many times did he show up?
Sean, now why are you attacking my husband?
Because he doesn't like me. Does he think? Let me ask you a question. Does he think I'm hitting on you or something? Does he think I like you that way?
No. My husband, trust me, he understands that. And you got a wife. You love your wife. And what did I tell you? Didn't I tell you I wasn't into white men?
Oh, my.
Did I tell you that?
But that's horrible. Why? What does that mean? You're not into white men? What does that mean?
Well, I kind of like black men.
All right. Listen. I'm whatever.
I'm only kidding with you.
If I was single,
maybe not.
All right. Tell my nephews I love them, and we're going to send you the Trump pens. You're going to like them.
Democrats have a responsibility to improve the life of Americans, all lives. But we also have other responsibilities. We have a responsibility to be the voice of millions of Americans sitting at home, afraid that they're not welcome anymore in Donald Trump's America. We have a responsibility to prevent Trump's bullying, aggressive behavior from becoming normalized in the eyes of America, especially the millions of young people who are watching and wondering. For example, if sexual assault is now a laughing matter. We have a responsibility to say that it is not normal for the KKK, Ku Klux Klan, to celebrate the election of the president they view as their champion with the victory parade. They have one scheduled. In other words, we have a responsibility to lead. That was just entered into the record, those references made are awful, they're hateful, they're frightening, they're scary. I invite any of my colleagues to read these horrible acts and invite any senator, Democrat or Republican, to come right down to this floor today and defend any one of them, these examples of hate and prejudice. I don't believe anyone in this chamber wants to defend the hateful acts that are being committed in President-elect Trump's name. They lead to one unavoidable conclusion. Many of our fellow Americans believe that Trump's election validates the kind of bullying, aggressive behavior Trump modeled on a daily basis. How can we teach our children that bragging about sexual assault is abhorrent if we rush into the arms of a man who dismissed this locker room talk? If we fail to hold Trump accountable, we all bear a major responsibility for normalizing his behavior.
I would say the Trump transition team is in transition. That was inevitable because President-elect Donald J. Trump is, in fact, a hands-on CEO. He's a guy who knows how to run things, and he is, I think, committed to putting together an administration that bears his imprint and achieves what he set out to do. And I would say that, in that sense, it probably confuses the traditional political press because they keep trying to apply traditional standards, and you can't do that with Trump. They tried that all through the primaries, and he kept winning despite the fact that nobody understood it. They have tried to apply it to him now, and the same confusion exists. This is a very competent manager who runs a very big worldwide system, who has a real knack for getting things organized, but he's going to do it his way on his terms. And if that doesn't fit the New York Times, then that's the New York Times problem. It's not Trump's problem.
That's the New York Times problem. Anyway, glad you're with us. Hour 2 of the Sean Hannity Show. Toll free. Our telephone number is 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. The narrative today is the Trump transition is in disarray. Is this another media creation? Well, I talked to Donald Trump today. He's absolutely hands-on, absolutely active and involved. It's absolutely moving forward. and there's no disarray at all whatsoever. But that, of course, is a media that doesn't know that the election is over, and that probably the biggest loser in this election cycle, especially with WikiLeaks, is the news media. And on top of that, you have people like Harry Reid. They're still acting as though they didn't hear an election took place and they lost. But anyway, here to put some light on this is former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. There was a rumor you were in Trump Tower today. Is that true?
No, I was at the transition offices in Washington, meeting with Vice President-elect Mike Pence and talking through the transition process. They now have the official transition offices are down here, about 2 blocks from the White House. And Mike is doing a great job. He reminded me that when he got to be governor, he had the same problem. They woke up the day after the election and said, guess what? Now you've got to organize the state government by the time you get sworn in. So this is just a much bigger version of something that he did back in Indiana. And we had a great conversation. As you know, we've known each other for many, many years. And he's an old personal friend. And I was really very impressed with the methodical way they're going at it. And I think a lot of the news media is not used to covering a CEO who actually operates with the speed and decisiveness that Trump does, or who is capable of keeping his mouth shut. I mean, part of the reason you're getting all these hysterical stories is they can't get any sources because everybody who actually knows won't talk, and everybody who's talking doesn't know.
That is 100% true. The conversation I had with him was totally off the record, and I can't share and won't share what I know. But the only thing I will share is that he's totally calm, totally focused, totally organized, and in control of the process, which is extraordinarily difficult, as you point out. You have a very limited time to get a good government together. There are challenges. The media and the Democrats are waiting to jump on whoever they think that they're going to be able to stifle or stop. You know, the latest target is they've been going after Bannon and Rudy Giuliani as best they can to disqualify Rudy before Rudy even has acknowledged that he even really wants a spot in the government of Donald Trump. I mean, he was out there on the campaign trail, so it's a good assumption, but I'm not sure that's definitely what he wants. And, you know,
these things also change. I mean, you're in a period of flux here where people talk and they think about, well, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Certainly, the two people who I think have the highest are Rudy Giuliani and Senator Jeff Sessions. They were the most loyal. They were there the longest. They worked their hearts out. They're both very competent people. But I think everybody has to sort of think this thing through for a little while. And I try to remind people that as long as you haven't made a choice, you have an amazing variety of options. The minute you make a choice, you're stuck with it. And so it's useful to be a little careful and to go sort of one step at a time in this process, which is exactly, as you just point out, what President-elect Trump is doing. And I felt very comfortable. I've been doing a lot of different things, as you know, working with them on planning and talking things through. I also had some very, very good sessions today up on the Senate side with people who are very enthusiastically looking forward to working with President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Pence. And I think people are going to be surprised how much energy and enthusiasm there is on the Republican side as we go into a new Congress in January.
I'm looking at, say, the New York Times' coverage of all of this, or any of the negative Trump newspapers, which are most of the major newspapers in the country. You know, the other narrative they're advancing is Trump has flipped on his repeal and replace Obamacare because every Republican plan, and there were Republican existing plans out there that agreed with pre-existing conditions. They all agreed with the idea that, kids can stay on a little longer after they get out of college so they can get their footing in the work world. He never flipped on NATO because he said it was obsolete and he wanted other people to pay the freight a little bit more. He didn't flip on immigration in one way, shape, or form. The only argument you can make is that he said, I really don't want to talk about Hillary because I got too much work to do, but that's not flipping and flopping on whether or not Hillary Clinton and a new Justice Department will do their job. He doesn't get to decide as president who gets indicted. That's not part of his enumerated powers.
Right, and he shouldn't. I mean, we don't want a country where the president who's directly political makes those decisions. But I'll say this. I would just say to all of your listeners today, Sean, remember how fundamentally inaccurate and biased and one-sided and distorted the elite media was covering the Trump campaign. Well, brace yourself. They're going to be exactly that bad.
Well, they're going to be worse because now they've been exposed as being so god-awful. They have proven what I claimed back in '08, which is journalism's dead. CNN is giving Hillary debate questions. CNN is seeking questions from the DNC for Trump and Cruz and Fiorina. The New York Times, Politico, they're allowing editing capability only for the Hillary campaign. John Harwood, CNBC, and it just goes on and on from there. So they've been exposed. And one of the more fascinating things to come out of this election, and this was an MRC article that came out in a study, that 70% of voters don't believe the news media is honest and truthful anymore. 80% believe news coverage favored Hillary by a large margin. Even Democrats recognize Hillary got favored. And the best part is 97% of voters said they did not let the media's bias influence how they voted. It's over for them. It's done.
Right. And I just think we need to recognize that most of what they're going to report about the Trump administration is going to be wrong. They don't have the sources. Nobody who's truly for Trump is going to confide in the New York Times reporters or the Washington Post reporters because we're all fed up with them. And so I think that, you're going to see a lot of these hysterical stories. But the truth is, and I can say this having been in the transition today, talked to them, and as you know, I have a role with them as one of the vice chairs. I remember working with Dick Cheney when, as the vice president-elect, he led the transition for George W. Bush back in 2000. I thought it was exactly right for President-elect Trump to decide that Vice President-elect Pence would lead the transition just as Cheney had. And I think that there's no question in my mind that Mike is fully up to it, and that ultimately all of the big major decisions are going to be made by one person, because that's how he ran his entire world. And
listen, I can only confirm this because I did talk in detail about specific things with him that I promised him I wouldn't talk about publicly. But I can tell you this. He is up to his eyeballs in this. He is all over this. He's owning this. The guy doesn't sleep. I talk to him at 1, 2 every morning, and I can talk to him at 6 a.m. the next morning. And nobody understands this. I'm watching the world implode here before our eyes. You got literally... They're now offering in some of the elite schools and some universities around the country therapy dog sessions for those that are so traumatized by the election results. Kids are literally allowed to play hooky to protest in front of Trump Tower as we speak. You've got Ivanka Trump has a clothing and a jewelry line, and it was a full page in the newspaper that she was wearing it on 60 Minutes. You have the New York Times promising to rededicate ourselves to honesty. And now they're trying to slander poor Rudy Giuliani to the point where, anybody that gets picked is going to be subject to the Clarence Thomas and Bork treatment.
Let me just say first, I just did my newsletter on 7 questions for the Times, suggesting, for example, if they wanted to, they could actually try to hire a reporter who'd actually voted for Trump. There are a number of steps they could take. And this totally pious, phony, hypocritical letter that their publisher wrote, apologizing for their coverage, pledging to get back to the tradition. Well, I just listed in my newsletter 7 steps they could take if he was at all sincere, which of course he isn't. But I have an idea for you because you have fun with this stuff. You ought to consider setting up, probably on the radio show, but maybe on TV, a contest for the person who finds the weirdest college reaction to the Trump victory.
I got one in New York. Listen, I swear to gosh. Oh, my word. I don't want to swear to God. I swear to gosh. Okay, this is true.
Okay.
They are now using therapy dogs in New York elite schools, and they're having group therapy sessions to deal with the trauma of Donald Trump's election.
Maybe you should ask if you could come and film one of the therapy sessions for your show.
I'd love to, actually. Maybe I can come talk them off the ledge before they absolutely lose it.
I just think this kind of stuff requires us to respond with humor rather than anger because it's so absurd and so insane that it's just, how can people pay good money to go to a school this stupid?
But that's a great line. But here's the problem. The left is going to do what they always do when there's a Republican or conservative in power, and they've already begun the effort to delegitimize, to slander, smear, besmirch, use character assassination. This is going to be against every appointment, if possible,
right.
Every Supreme Court justice, every decision. As Donald Trump tries to move his agenda forward, it's going to be a nonstop battle.
That's exactly right, which means we have to encourage every American who wants America to be great again to lock arms together and run over them. I mean, these are not people we're going to negotiate with or we're going to apologize to or we're going to try to reason with. These people are nuts.
Yeah, they are nuts. And the bottom line is, you remember Obama was kind of arrogant, say, I won. Well, they can come, but Republicans, they got to go to the back of the bus. Remember all of that arrogance? So, obviously Wall Street's acting pretty well. Dollar hits a 14-year high, and we've been on an 8-day winning streak on Wall Street.
Yep, I think all we have to do is calmly and methodically move forward and recognize that the most experienced CEO ever to become president is now in the process of managing the transition, and he's going to put his personal stamp on this government, and it's truly going to be a Trump administration. And of course, that will drive the New York Times and the Washington Post utterly crazy. And a lot of these Washington bedwetters who were unwilling to deal with Trump, although they were supposedly Republican, are now saying, "Oh, well, I really didn't want to work for the government anyway because I've always sat out here doing nothing, waiting to get back in power. But
all right,
now
last
that I've
question.
thought about it, I don't want to do it."
Will you take any major position in the administration?
No, I'm going to be the chief planner.
Okay, meaning outside.
Meaning outside, but I'm going to look at every single aspect of how we make America great again and try to offer advice and counsel as I did during the Bush years.
All right, Mr. Speaker, as always, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it. You're right. I think humor is the best way to deal with it. Either that or we're going to be campaigning now, trying to get to Thanksgiving here and get a little break. It's very interesting to watch the aftermath of an election and how everybody starts pointing fingers. Nobody ever wants to take blame. Obama went out there yesterday in his press conference was saying, I won Iowa because the demographics dictated that I would win, not because the demographics dictated I'd win Iowa. It was because I spent 87 days going to every small town and fair and fish fry and VFW Hall, and there were some counties where I might have lost, but maybe I lost by 20 points instead of 50. Some counties maybe I won that people didn't expect because people had a chance to see you and listen to you and get a sense of you and know what you stood for and were fighting for. A direct shot at Hillary Clinton. And it's a pretty pointed rebuke. And basically saying how he wins and she loses. And to Democrats who are discouraged, Obama's reminding him, well, things change pretty rapidly. WikiLeaks, interesting, exposed Obama supporting a border fence. But I guess that didn't work politically for his narrative. So anyway, now a lot is being written about what happened on election night that Hillary Clinton wouldn't come out and concede the election? Why was John Podesta sent out there to say, well, we're going to wait till all the votes are counted when it was obvious they couldn't win? Anyway, there is a number of stories floating around that, in fact, Hillary might have absolutely lost it and was mad. There was a Daily Mail report that days before losing the election, Bill and Hillary had a screaming match over who to blame for her campaign failures. And apparently Bill got so angry he threw his phone off the roof, according to the Daily Mail, of his Arkansas penthouse. And they were, Hillary was blaming the FBI Director Comey for reopening the investigation. Bill faulted Robbie Mook and John Podesta and Hillary herself. He said the three of them were tone deaf about the feeble economy, its impact on millions and millions of working class voters. A big part of Bill's anger towards Hillary was that he was sidelined during the entire campaign by her advisors. Anyway, Ed Klein is here. He's got sources within the Clinton camp that feed him information all the time. You really do, don't you?
Yes, I do. And you just read my piece.
Well, why is it that people in the Clinton camp talk to you? Is it just because you're a nice guy, or? Well,
they talk to me because they've been talking to me, first of all, for the last 13 or 14 years.
Right.
Nobody knows who they are because I keep them anonymous.
Well,
and they like to get their point of view across, and they also feel important when they talk to you.
So, but, I mean, you had a background as a journalist. You were, how many years at the New York? Well, no. You know what I mean. In mainstream journalism. Okay, because you're not considered mainstream anymore. You know that. But they want to excoriate you and beat the crap out of you.
You said it.
All right.
But, when I was at the New York Times, that was a long time ago.
Right.
And the editor-in-chief of the New York Times was Abe Rosenthal, and I reported to him.
Right.
He kept that paper straight. In fact, on his tombstone today,
it
says A.M. Rosenthal, the dates that he lived, and right underneath it said he kept the paper straight. After he left, the paper went way over left.
What did you think of the paper? I thought this was pretty interesting from my perspective. The New York Times promising that they would rededicate themselves to honest reporting because they were exposed.
Don't hold your breath.
No.
I mean, look at today's New York Times. Every single day, every story on the front page of the New York Times is a shot at Donald Trump.
It has been the whole campaign.
That's right, and still is.
And they, even Cheryl Atkinson on her website, she said they never reported on Hillary.
That's right.
Where's the Woodward and Bernstein of our age? Because a big part of the story narrative now is, CNN in the tank for Hillary,
right.
NBC, CNBC, MSNBC, all in the tank for Hillary. Washington Post, New York Times, Boston Globe, all in the tank. Right. All the major networks in the tank for Hillary.
And they will still be. I really laugh at this idea of rededicating yourself.
Or searching. Well, they had the pipsqueak on CNN saying they've got to search their soul. And I'm like, well, why don't you start in your own house? This guy's like a Fox stalker. He's obsessed everything Fox.
These people all live in the same areas. They go to the same parties. They hang out with each other. If you so much as deviate 1 centimeter from this liberal point of view, you are out. You're like, shamed. You're thrown out of the club.
All right. So let me ask you, what did happen on election night, and how many sources do you cite here?
I've got one source.
Okay.
Only one source.
Okay.
This is a source who's
there.
Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton went to law school with this guy. He appointed this source a federal judge. The judge has now retired. He's still Bill Clinton's chief of legal expert. And Bill and he talked about what happened that night in the hotel where Hillary lost. And apparently, according to my source, Bill told him that Hillary completely lost it, that she could not go out and face the public, and that this continued on through the entire night until 6:30 in the morning. And now a second source I have.
But let me go back, though, because when the initial exit polls came in, I spent a big part of the days leading up to the election warning my audience, do not, under any circumstances, listen to the exit polls.
Right.
And I turned out to be more than right.
Yeah, they're always wrong.
They're always wrong. And I know my audience didn't, which is good. But I heard her campaign, they were popping champagne corks and partying a storm like it's, Yeah,
I mean, she was a total basket case. So the second source I had was actually in the room with Hillary that night, and she was inconsolably crying all night long until the wee hours of the morning, in which she finally started to pull herself together and started blaming James Comey, the director of the FBI, for all her problems. It was all his fault because he revived the investigation 11 days before the election.
So the night of the election, 2 days before, they're fighting, Bill and Hillary. They think that they're in trouble. They knew they were in trouble.
Bill had been totally sidelined during this entire campaign. It drove him absolutely nuts. He kept on calling Robbie Mook, the campaign director, and Podesta, who he knows very, very well, and kept telling them, you guys are missing the point. You've got to go. Why aren't you in Chicago? Why aren't you in the ghetto in Chicago saying this crime has to stop? This would go over big with the African-American community. Why aren't you going to Wisconsin? Why aren't you going to Michigan and Pennsylvania and talking to the white working-class voters who are supposed to be the base of the Democratic Party? You are ignoring them all, and they didn't listen to him.
They didn't. All right, so now it's election night. Her staff is popping champagne corks. Then reality begins to kick in.
Yeah.
And then Florida goes. North Carolina goes. Right. Ohio's gone. It's looking close in Wisconsin.
Right.
It's looking close in Michigan and Pennsylvania. What's going on?
They're in a state of catatonic. They're frozen, absolutely, totally frozen. They don't know what to do.
Well, because it was funny because I was watching different networks that night, and I remember watching that they kept trying to spin those people that were looking at the numbers. No. Our people tell us that there's still a ton of votes out in Philly. Meanwhile, Philly's reporting 99%.
Right. I think they still believed it until the very end.
You thought they believed that they'd pull it out?
I think so. They were in a total state of denial until the very, very end.
So then walk us through what happened with Podesta, why she wouldn't come out.
Well, Podesta asked her, right, as he should. Every candidate who's run for president who's lost always goes out, talks to the people who worked on the campaign, thanks them, tells the American public, my opponent ran a great campaign. This, we're going to fight another day. All that stuff that all losers have always done. She couldn't bring herself to do it. She was simply not physically, mentally able to pull herself together.
So they knew, even when Podesta said, we're going to count all the votes, they knew they lost.
They knew they lost, and they knew that she couldn't
then why
raise herself off her chair and actually go out and talk to the people.
Kellyanne told me that Podesta had spoken. They were getting ready to go out and claim victory.
Right.
All right. Even though the AP had declared them victorious. The networks were not declaring it. To me, it was going on way too long. Nobody wanted to be first. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But anyway, and then Kellyanne got a call from Uma Abedin.
Yes.
And they had exchanged numbers knowing that this moment was coming. And Uma said, congratulations, the secretary would like to speak to Mr. Trump.
Yes.
Okay, 2-minute conversation. I asked Trump about that call. He described it on 60 Minutes as he described it to me. And boom, gracious, they hang up, they go out, they're victorious. How did they get her to make that call?
No concession speech, though, first, right?
Well, she conceded. There was no concession speech, but she conceded to Trump, and Trump went out there, and that was the first thing that he said.
Right. That's all she could do, though. I mean, that's all.
That was it. Just make a 2-minute call.
Listen, I think I got to say this once again. One of my sources spoke to her at 6:30 the next morning. She was still inconsolably weeping, crying. She couldn't even speak a sentence without crying. Finally,
By the way, it sounds like somebody didn't really have the temperament for the job as we had discussed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, this is a woman who couldn't take defeat, who couldn't take a setback. And she was looking for people to blame. She even blamed Barack Obama because he didn't stop Comey from doing the investigation.
He can't stop Comey from doing the investigation.
Of course he can't.
All right, so then I guess the next question, have you noticed, as I have, that those candidates that lose elections, they just seem to go off the deep end? I stand by I still think Mitt Romney would have been a good president. I believe that.
I agree. I totally agree with you.
And what they did to that poor man is unforgivable to me.
Right.
But what he did this year is inexplicably bad.
Terrible.
It was horrible what he did to Trump.
Right. Inexcusable.
Now, okay,
inexcusable.
Al Gore loses, and he lost his mind with it.
That's right.
Okay. John McCain seemed to handle
he always lost his mind, John McCain.
Well, he's known for a temper.
Right.
John McCain was probably the best of the modern people that lost it. Jimmy Carter lost it a little bit. They all lose it.
Well, yeah. I mean, Hillary in particular, since she was in high school, she had this dream of becoming president. She thought she was going to be president right after Bill Clinton,
right,
when he left in 2001.
Right.
So she's waited all these years to do what she expected to automatically happen.
So are we done with the Clintons now?
The Clintons are yesterday's
Chelsea
news.
Clinton running for office?
I don't believe it. Well, she may run, but, Chelsea Clinton is one of the most unpopular people within the Clinton campaign of all the people.
We saw that in WikiLeaks. I mean, they were calling her a spoiled brat. And meanwhile, I actually give her more credit than anybody else. She was pointing out the pay to play, the corruption, the potential legal pitfalls, which may still happen. I mean, I don't think Donald Trump, he said on 60 Minutes, he's not going to go after, he wants to focus on the country, but it's not going to be up to him.
You're raising, I think, a key question now. The question is, should the 4 different committees in Congress, 2 in the Senate, 2 in the House,
they have to,
and the FBI, which has still got an investigation going on, they have to continue to find out what the truth is.
They will.
And they have to make her pay for her illegality.
Will Obama pardon her for crimes committed or may have been committed?
I think he's probably debating that subject right as we speak.
All right. At the end of the day, if he thinks that there's no stopping a possible indictment.
I think he may. I think he probably would, yes.
And you think that otherwise she might get indicted?
Oh, I don't think there's any question.
I don't think so either. And by the way, it won't be Trump's decision.
If it were you or me, we'd be in jail right now.
Well, if it's you, for sure. I mean, listen, Ed, you did great work. And, the fact that you have these credentials, how many years at the New York Times?
10.
How many years at Newsweek?
12.
Yeah. I mean, and the fact that every time, you were the mainstream media, and now they don't like you because now you actually report on things that they disagree with.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
There's no room for disagreement among the mainstream media.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program. News Roundup, information overload. Pastors that have been supporting Donald Trump are now under major fire and protesting and threat. We'll get to that. And don't forget Hannity tonight, 10 Eastern on the Fox News channel.
In his campaign, who ran saying things that aren't just contrary to fact, but literally threatening to use presidential power in a way that would erode the rights and privileges and equality of large sections of Americans. God bless the protesters.
Glad people are protesting, though. It's important for the world to see that not all of America supports Donald Trump. I am glad about that protest.
Now, you're not scared, but there are people, Americans, who are scared, and some of them are demonstrating right now, demonstrating against you, against your rhetoric.
That's only because they don't know me. I really believe that. That's only
they listen to you in the campaign, and that's...
I just don't think they know me.
Look, I obviously supported another candidate, and she won the popular vote substantially, as we all now know.
Democrats have a responsibility to improve the life of Americans, all lives. But we also have other responsibilities. We have a responsibility to be the voice of millions of Americans sitting at home, afraid that they're not welcome anymore in Donald Trump's America. We have a responsibility to prevent Trump's bullying, aggressive behavior from becoming normalized in the eyes of America, especially the millions of young people who are watching and wondering. For example, if sexual assault is now a laughing matter. We have a responsibility to say that it is not normal for the KKK, Ku Klux Klan, to celebrate the election of the president they view as their champion with a victory parade. They have one scheduled. In other words, we have a responsibility to lead.
News Roundup and information overload hour here on the Sean Hannity Show. So anyway, things are getting a little out of control when you have taxpayer dollars being used for additional grief counseling at high schools and universities now all around the country. They are putting up cry rooms, special cry rooms in some places. They're offering students pet therapy and aromatherapy, depending on which campus they happen to be on, and so they can cope with their election-related sadness. Boy, we have come so far from the days of my grandparents that had no money, that came from Ireland and faced discrimination. Irish Catholic need not apply. I don't think they had aromatherapy, group therapy, grief counseling, pet therapy, and cry rooms available for them as they were struggling through their lives. Or my parents, both of whom grew up poor, one in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, the other in the South Bronx. But the left is collectively losing their mind. You've got now 4 consecutive nights in Dallas, anti-Trump protesters taking aim at Dallas First Baptist Church. Now, that is the church of Pastor Robert Jeffress. And you might remember that he led a group of pastors to Trump Tower. This was back in October of 2015. And, he and other pastors prayed with Trump. And anybody that was in that meeting would have left there, first of all, impressed by his charisma, his grasp of issues, but the fact that he's in this to win it. And people like Jerry Falwell Jr., who's the president of Liberty University, he has faced backlash, as has our good friend Darrell Scott, who is a founder and senior pastor of the New Spirit Revival Center, which is expecting Sean Hannity to preach from the pulpit any day now. And it's going to happen once he asks me and invites me. I'm going to be there. But welcome both of you back to the program. Robert Jeffress, tell us what's happening in Dallas.
Well, we've had these protests. They started Saturday night. We had another group last night. And really, Sean, what they're doing, they hate Donald Trump. They hate our church's conservative beliefs that aren't radical, but they're founded on historic Christianity, and they hate my support of Donald Trump. And what we're seeing here, really, Sean, is the hypocrisy of liberalism. And that is those who cry loudest for tolerance are usually the most intolerant people when it comes to ideas they disagree with.
What are they doing when they're there? What are they saying in front of your church? They
are shouting out, "Not my president, not my church." And the leader of this group, Dominique Alexander, Saturday night stood in front of our church and said, "This is a mecca of hate." Now, Sean, what your audience needs to know about Dominique Alexander is he's the same thug who organized the police protests in Dallas last summer, one of which ended up with 5 police officers being killed. And he's concerned about police brutality. He's concerned about Donald Trump's and mine hateful rhetoric. And yet a few years ago, he was charged with causing serious bodily injury to his girlfriend's 2-year-old baby. Now, how's that for hypocrisy? Worried about my hate rhetoric when he himself almost kills a child, according to many reports?
Well, he's quoted in an article as saying that your church is an official hate church and an official hate organization. And I guess my question to you is, and he says he's going to be there every Sunday, or at least this Sunday, will that stop or intimidate any of the congregation from going to your church?
No, it's not going to stop any of us. I mean, it energizes our people. Look, Sean, we cover 6 blocks of downtown Dallas. We're a 147-year-old church, and our church doesn't preach hate at all. We don't hate anybody. But, you know, in today's liberal world, when you say you believe in traditional marriage or you're pro-life, suddenly you become a hater. And I tell people, you know, this is like this guy, Dominique, and this group of protesters, they remind me of a flea striking its hind leg against Mount Everest saying, "I'm going to topple you." I mean, they're not opposing me or our church. Ultimately, they're opposing the Word of God, and the Word of God's not going to be toppled.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Pastor Scott, I mean, you got these stories, leftist students painting swastikas and Trump on a campus church. That took place at Northwestern University, charged with vandalizing the campus church. You got a poor guy that was gunned down outside a bar because he just joked about voting for Trump. You got a mom kicking a 7-year-old son out of the house for voting for Donald Trump in the school election. It didn't even count, for crying out loud. You have taken a lot of heat throughout this election cycle, and you've also become a very good friend of Donald Trump.
Yeah. You know what's unfortunate is the fact that over the last month or 2 months of the campaign, if you notice, Hillary Clinton and by extension her surrogates, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and the different entertainers, they didn't campaign on issues. They campaigned against Donald Trump, and they created this idea of this mad psycho who, if he gets in office, he's going to press the button and blow up the world. He's a racist, xenophobic, misogynistic, sexist hater. And so they created this picture of him, and that was their campaign platform. Now, once Donald Trump won, this image that they created for a lot of America or their supporters, it didn't vanish with the election win for Donald Trump. So now there's an attitude of fear. There's a spirit of fear that's pervading America. That's the direct result of Hillary Clinton's campaign in saying that you've let a madman, you've let the Frankenstein monster, the boogeyman has gotten loose, and we have to stop it. And that's not the truth at all. They should have stuck to the issue, but they didn't, and they campaigned on hate and fear, and they used that as a platform, and now this is the result. And they're gonna reap the fruit of that. They're definitely going to reap the fruit of those seeds that they sowed. Believe me, the Bible says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall a man reap."
Why, if you can quote scripture like that, would you ever want dopey old Sean Hannity preaching from the pulpit? I mean, seriously.
Because I heard Sean Hannity rolling out with scripture after scripture after scripture at the town hall meeting.
By the way, Pastor Jeffers, you'll like this, because I did study theology. I went to a seminary, although I'm more Christian than I am Catholic now because I'm so disgusted with the Catholic Church and their handling of their issues. But I do believe Jesus is the Son of God, so don't worry. And I do believe he suffered, died for all of us, for our sins, and we've all sinned and fallen short. I don't know what it is that they think that Donald Trump is going to do. I mean, I'm trying to understand it. I mean, securing our borders, what's so bad about that? Getting rid of criminal aliens, what's so bad about that? You know, incentivizing trillions of dollars back in the economy from multinational corporations so they'll invest in factories and manufacturing centers here. What's so bad about that? Energy independence, what's so bad about that? Obamacare, you can't get any worse than you got. Education back to the states, I would think people would be applauding that. I just think that there is a false narrative about every conservative, Pastor Jeffers, that the Republicans and conservatives, and I resent this coming up every election season, that they're racist, they're sexist, they're homophobic. Well, I didn't take money from Saudi Arabia like the Clintons did. I didn't take money from countries where marital rape is legal, where marital beatings are legal, where women are told how to dress, whether they can drive, and gays and lesbians are killed, and Christians and Jews are persecuted. I never took their money. I never would.
No, and look, I think all of these reactions are against a media-created distortion of Donald Trump rather than what he's actually said. You know, people, for example, from the LGBT community who make up a large part of those protesting our church, I mean, I point out to them, Donald Trump is the first Republican candidate in history who in an acceptance speech actually acknowledged their group. So what are they so upset about? And, you know, I think my friend Darrell will agree with this, we were in Donald Trump's office this time last week before the results came in. We were both impressed and commented on how measured he was, how calm he was with everything going on. I think people are going to be surprised at how different a President Trump is from a candidate Trump. I'm not talking about in convictions, but in his measured tone and how he's going to govern.
Donald Trump's going to be Trump. He's not going to change that dramatically, and if he does, that's a problem. You know, my best advice to him is to ignore the media and to follow his own gut and fulfill his promises. Now, if he does those things, then I think he's going to be rewarded with a public that is appreciative. If he doesn't do those things, he's not going to win over anybody.
No, and he's got to stay true to his convictions, and I think he will. 1 Corinthians
that says, "Judge nothing before the time." And I don't understand how Trump's presidency is being criticized as much as it is, and he hasn't spent one day in office yet.
No, I think that's a good point.
He hasn't spent one day in office, and so he's being criticized for something that he hasn't done. And, you know, once again, it's because of that fear that's been promoted. Pastor Jeffers is right. When I went up to Trump Tower with him on last Monday, I was upset, a little apprehensive. I was like, okay, what do you think? What do you guys think? And Trump was so relaxed that I said to myself, well, if this guy is not worried about it, what am I worrying for? He was so relaxed and glad to be in his office at his desk at work that it put me at ease, and he's going to put the country at ease as well. When he assumes office, he'll quiet everybody down. He'll quiet down all this noise, and they're going to see we're going to have a great 4 years with his presidency.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think, you know, from my standpoint, the best thing that he said in the 60 Minutes interview, they were asked, well, you planning on taking vacations? And he's like, vacation? I just got elected. I want to go to work and roll up my sleeves. You know, I saw him Saturday night, and he was working. What time was it? It was like 11 o'clock at night. And, you know, and he'd been at it all day. I mean, I don't understand the mentality of people. You know, what do they think he's doing? And so they made a big deal that he took his family out for a celebratory, I guess, dinner, and he dumped the press pool. And you would think this is the biggest crime in the entire world because he took his family to a restaurant for a dinner. And political journalists, the press pool, you know, would have been ready to travel with him, but the pool was not notified. I'm like, well, what do you want me to invite you into the bathroom for crying out loud?
And Sean, isn't it interesting, and Darrell, I think we all three would say this, about how hard he works. I mean, even Barack Obama criticized Hillary for not working hard enough in this election, and yet through this last 16 months, not only has he been running for president, he's been running a $10 billion corporation. Talk about somebody who can multitask. When we're in his office and you all are in his office, he's not only running for president, he's trying to keep this business going and thriving. I want a president who can multitask like Donald Trump.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Hey, I got a bargain to put out. If Pastor Jeffers agrees to come preach for me on that, then Sean, and we can get you in before him.
Oh, so you want? So wait a minute. So now that I introduce,
tough act to follow.
So now that I introduce you to Jeffers, because you didn't know him until I introduced you to.
You're right.
Okay, so I introduced you to, and now my invitation's rescinded, and Pastor Jeffers gets my place at the pulpit because you really didn't want me there anyway.
I'm going to have you first, and then I'm going to have Pastor Jeffers the following week, so everybody can say this guy shouldn't have tried to follow Sean Hannity.
And how long do you want me to preach for, Pastor?
Well, how long? Not like the Catholic Church; they only go like 10 minutes.
No. Yeah,
the Black Pentecostal Church, I need at least 45 to 55 minutes out of you.
Oh, I could do 45 to 55 in my sleep. I mean, I gave a speech today. I gave a speech today with like 3 notes on it, and I think it went over an hour.
Well, Sean, you can, once you finish with Daryl, you come down here to First Baptist Dallas. You can go as long as you want to, but no commercial interruptions, okay?
Listen, I hear both of you. You both are cracking me up. Now, the funny thing is, if I do this, you can't put it on the internet. It's got to be internet free. No phones. But I'll preach from my heart. I'll give you a testimony of why I'm the guy that should be on the cross next to Jesus saying you don't belong here.
See, Pastor Jeffers, if he gets that Roman Catholic, I'm not worthy, purgatory
I'm not.
If he gets that out of him, he'll be all right.
Pastor, I'm not. Are you worthy? Nobody's worthy.
We have been made worthy. He has made him to be sin
but I'm saying,
that we might be made the righteousness of God in
of
him.
Myself, I am not worthy. I admit it. I'm a piece of garbage.
All right. I think you used another word in an email to me, Sean, but you're right. We're all that way.
All right. I got to roll. Thank you, guys. All right, 800-941-SEAN, our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. We'll hit the phones when we get back. Let's get to our busy telephones here. Let us say hi to Chris in Utah. Chris, hi. How are you? And welcome to the program.
I'm doing great, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
What can I do for you?
I just wanted to call. I'm an American Muslim,
okay.
And I'm not calling in to lament my plight post-election here, or cry about the way things went, because truly I am a conservative.
Can I ask you what your plight is? What is your plight?
Well, the plight would be, just the
what
the popular, talking point now. Muslims feel completely disjointed and disaffected, and
what do you think's going to happen? Do you think Donald Trump's going to go shut down every mosque in America? That's not going to happen.
No.
So then what is your plight?
No, Sean, I think you're misunderstanding me. I don't have a plight.
I'm using your words.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned.
What are you concerned about?
I'm a registered Republican.
Okay.
I have had no. I didn't even vote this election. I didn't vote. I wanted it to just sort itself out.
What are you worried about? Listen, you're obviously calling because you're worried, concerned about something. Just speak straight up. What are you worried about?
I'm worried about the whole conservative movement, and if it doesn't embrace a new sort of moral majority, I just think there's so much more overlap.
All right, you're a conservative. Help me out. Help me out here. Is it
Christian values?
Is it conservative to lower taxes, and half the country won't even pay any federal income taxes, and the corporate tax rate to incentivize corporations to invest and build their factories and manufacturing centers here? Is it a good idea as a conservative to lower the corporate tax rate and lower taxes for everybody?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and repatriate trillions with a lower tax incentivized rate, that's good, right?
Absolutely.
Getting rid of Obamacare, health savings accounts, that's conservative too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
this is all
hang on.
I'm...
Energy independence is conservative too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And education back to the states is conservative too, right?
Absolutely. You're speaking to a strict constitutionalist.
Okay, good. And you like originalists like the people that he named that he'd put on the court?
Absolutely.
And it's a good idea for America to control its borders, isn't it?
I absolutely agree.
Okay, and do you have a problem with extreme vetting of refugees from countries that practice, for example, Sharia law?
I have a problem with I have a problem with the rhetoric surrounding it. I have a problem.
Okay, well, he calls it extreme vetting.
Religion.
So if somebody comes from a country where marital rape, like Qatar, is allowed, or marital beatings, that's allowed in Qatar, or women in a lot of these Sharia countries, women are told how to dress, and they can't drive a car, and gays and lesbians are just killed for being gay and lesbian, and Christians and Jews are persecuted. If you come from a country and grew up under that culture, don't you think, which directly contradicts our Constitution, shouldn't we have the right to know what your intention is if you're coming here, whether or not you want to bring those values with you? I'm asking a very specific question. Answer that.
American values and the American Constitution and the American way of life, then absolutely not. They should not choose to live here. But the vast majority of immigrants that I know, I was born in this country. I'm as American can be. My wife is American. We both converted to Islam years ago, formerly of the Christian faith. Our point is there is much more overlap. There is much more cooperation to be had, much more enlightenment and expansion of our conservative base with people like me that cannot happen when there is such staunchly I don't even know how to put it, just kind of vile rhetoric that lumps together Islam as a whole and specific war-torn parts of the world that definitely have issues and have cultural issues. They absolutely do, not denying that. But there is a large and a growing base of people that are in my shoes that have no party, that have no voice, that have no place.
Okay, you just went off. I'm not going to spend much more time with you because you have a perception that you can't give me a specific reality about. And you're just saying, you're speaking generally. I just went through a list. You say you're a conservative and you agreed with me on the entire Trump agenda. And then yet you're telling me, on the other hand, you have a feeling that this and that with no specific. When you get specific examples, tell me. And if somebody crosses a line, I'll stand with you. But until then, there's nothing to worry about. America, as you know it, is going to be fine. You don't need aromatherapy, pet therapy, a cry room, or anything else. Your country's going to be fine. If anything, we're going to have an opportunity here. If he puts in place his agenda, which we will hold him to, then I say the country's going to be infinitely better off. So let's give the guy a chance. Then if something happens that you don't like, well, we'll deal with it at the time. But what you're talking about is not in the cards. He told you what he's going to do with extreme vetting. I think it's a wise idea. He also said America can help victims of a civil war by providing a safe zone, like Jordan is currently doing. Anyway, let's hear you say hi. Thank you for the call. Mike in Palm Springs, California. How are you?
I'm doing great, Sean. How you doing?
I'm good. What's going on?
Well, I'm just sick of hearing the Democrats say that Hillary won the popular vote, that she should be in, that we should go with the polarity of the country. However, Trump carried 30 states. She carried 20. So I think carrying nearly two-thirds of the United States voted for Trump, that there's no question on who should be president of the United States. Absolutely none.
Look, to me, if Trump wanted to, he went with the system that we have. If he wanted to run up his popular vote total, he could have gone out and campaigned in California. He could have gone to Illinois. He could have gone to New York and New Jersey. But he didn't bother because that's not how elections are won. Elections are won with electoral votes. He'd never win a California because California slanted off radically left. And he never would win New York. New York is solidly left. He might have had a chance in New Jersey, but he didn't even mess with it. He went to the states where he knew his message would resonate. And he was smart, and in the end, he might even win the popular vote. Who knows? Let us say hello to Miles in Reno, Nevada. What's up, Miles? How are you? And we're glad you called.
Hey, Sean. Good to hear from you. So anyway, I'm a 23-year-old college student here at the University of Nevada, and I also work for the media here in Reno. And I was wondering, I know you've been talking about the media a lot recently, and, they cover the protesters and the people who are protesting, but where are the Trump supporters? Like, where are the interviews with the Trump supporters? Like, how do you think they feel at this moment?
Well, I think that the Trump supporters, the great thing about the Media Research Center and their analysis of media bias is that 97% of voters saw right through the bias coverage in this campaign, and 97% said it did not impact their voting. Look, it takes people sometimes a while to catch up. I don't think most people, even the most ardent Obama supporter could come on this program and intelligently argue that the Obama years have been good for the economy. I don't think they can argue that the Obama years were good for foreign policy. Now, we bring people on, like my buddy Austin Goolsbee, and we have fun with him, and he's kind of, he'll defend his friend to the death, and I admire his loyalty, but we're not better off. I mean, it's just a fact. If after 4 years of Trump we're not better off, it'll be obvious. He won't need to give a sell job. He's either we're gonna get tangible results or we're not. And I'm hopeful. I know under Hillary we just have more, precipitous, steady decline. And I know that the people, I keep saying that this is the forgotten man and woman election. Those people without jobs, in poverty, on food stamps, that can't buy a house, that can't climb their way up the ladder. They would just have more of the same. Yeah. And you know what? There's a chance now to reverse all of this, and that's where I'm a little hopeful. But, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Republicans in the House and Senate. They haven't earned our trust. They caused Trump's election. They're most responsible for it. The emergence of Trump was a direct result of Republican failure, and I think Trump fully understands this. And what I get from him in the 2 times I have talked to him, once I saw him and once I talked to him, since the election, he is all business. There's no playing around with this guy right now. He is completely 1,000% focused on his agenda. And the only advice I gave him is keep your promises. I told him that right to his face. I said, all people want is do what you said you're going to do. If he does that, then I think it would work out great. Oh, come on. Santa Claus from Houston, Texas. Come on. Is that you, Santa? Oh, it's our...
Oh, son, Hannity, I gave the world and the country kept my promise.
Big time Santa Claus calling in from Houston. What's going on, Santa? I miss you. You did make me a promise, right?
I kept my promise to you, big time, Sean Hannity. I just wanted to let everybody know before I get there to make my arrival next week that the world in America is great. But one thing I want everybody to know, stop being bad to each other, because right now Santa's not liking what he see around the world and in the country. So doggone it, we got to get that right as well.
We got to get that right. That's right, Santa. Hey, listen, Santa, what do you want for Christmas? I know you're busy giving all the kids all they want and checking your list and checking it twice and checking which news anchors are naughty and not nice and lie to the American people, etc. So what does Santa Claus want for Christmas this year?
All I want is a beautiful world and a beautiful America back again, and that would make Santa very happy.
That'd make me very happy, Santa. Maybe Santa needs a new sleigh or something. How's Rudolph? Is Rudolph retired yet?
Oh, that nose is shining brighter than ever now.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Wait till the Christmas day of 25th come of December. He will shine bright all over the world.
Oh, Santa, this has been... I don't need any more presents for Christmas, Santa. I got my present on Election Day. And I've got...
Oh, well...
I got hope in my heart, Santa.
Well, God bless everybody, and everybody until that time. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Now, Santa,
God bless you all.
Are you going to be taking calls from young children this year?
I sure will, Sean. I sure will.
All right, Santa.
They need our doggone helping this year for sure.
All right, you Santa. Good to talk to you, my friend. Big time Santa Claus checking in from the North Pole in Houston. Anyway, 800-941 Sean is our number. Remember, big time Santa Claus was on the air taking calls last year. What was I thinking? It was the funniest hour we've ever done. All these, big time Sean Hannity. Oh, man. Okay, winter is